Chadwick Boseman was an American actor and producer, popular for playing the roles of historical figures in black culture. In 2013, he played Jack Robinson, the first black Major League Baseball player in 42. James Brown, the Godfather of Soul, in Get On Up in 2014. Thurgood Marshall in 2017, the first black man in the Supreme Court of the United States. And he was also tipped to play Yasuke, the first black samurai. He also played the massive starring role of the first African mainstream superhero, the Black Panther, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This movie won him an NAACP Image Award, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and won Marvel Studios their first Oscar. He also had roles in Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, 21 Bridges, and The Five Bloods, all of which were individually very successful movies. These on their own are pretty impressive achievements, but when we also weigh them with the fact that Boseman was battling stage 3 colon cancer at the time a lot of these movies were made, it makes you just see how much of a real hero this man was. He was able to persevere, and he never let his sickness get in the way of what he wanted to achieve. That perseverance and hustling mentality is something that we can all learn from King T'Challa. So in this video, we'll be looking at Chadwick Boseman's top 5 rules for success. These are the rules that guided him throughout his life, and they can guide you too if you implement them. Number 5. Learn from the greats. In his breakout role in 42, Chadwick Boseman had the opportunity to work side by side with the legendary actor Harrison Ford. When asked what it was like to be working on the same set with such an actor, Boseman described it as getting up for a big game. According to him, he circled the specific scenes where he was to be working directly with Ford. In his words, this is why you play the game. In the same interview, Boseman was asked what he was able to learn from Harrison Ford after working so closely with him, and Boseman's answer was, experience. Boseman was intentional about learning from Harrison Ford at the time, because that was what he needed. In his opinion, there are some things that you can ask someone who has been there longer than you have, that you'll never be able to ask in a classroom. Harrison Ford had played numerous leading man roles. Boseman was not going to pass on a chance to learn directly from Ford for that movie, and for the future. Boseman considered it foolish to not ask questions from people who have preceded you in a certain field when you have the opportunity. A lot of times, he would ask Ford questions about some tiny details of the role and the job, while other times he just watched Ford do his thing on set and learn from that. Number 4. Develop a strong work ethic. As we mentioned before, Boseman played the role of James Brown in the 2014 movie Get On Up. To put this into perspective, James Brown is a legendary American singer, songwriter, dancer, musician, record producer and bandleader, and is famous for being the Godfather of Soul. Now, while not every single one of these roles had to be done in the movie, the singing and the dancing Boseman couldn't escape. Prior to getting this role, he had no experience as a professional dancer, and the only singing experience he had was singing in the choir when he was a child. Suddenly he was expected to sing and sound like the legendary James Brown. To get there, it required plenty of time, lessons and effort on his part. In an interview, he described it as a regiment. He laid out his schedule for the preparation of the movie. He had to do dance rehearsals for hours, 5 days a week, and vocal rehearsals about 2 to 3 times every week. These rehearsals were in addition to the research and reading that he had to do to know more about James Brown, and he had to do all of these things in such a short time. Tate Taylor, the producer and director of the movie, chipped in credit to the work ethic that Chadwick Boseman had shown in the time leading up to the movie. Taylor mentioned that Boseman had just 2 months to prepare for the magnificent show he put on for the character of James Brown. So, never underestimate how much a strong work ethic can do for you. The work leading up to the big show is just as important as the big show itself. So never forget that. Keep hustling, keep grinding, and when the day of the show comes, you'll shine. Number 3. Do what challenges you. When you look through the life of Chadwick Boseman and all the characters he chose to play in the prime of his career, you can see just how much he was willing to take up a challenge. He acted as a baseball player, singer, detective, a superhero, and in a movie set to release sometime this year, he played the first African samurai. All of these are completely different roles that require completely different training regimens and processes. When you add the fact that a lot of these roles were about iconic historical figures, you can tell how much of a challenge it was for Boseman to pull them off. In an interview, he talked about how making movies made him have to leave his family and loved ones for months at a time. He explained how all the hours of your day are taken up in physical and mental preparation for the shooting of these movies. And then, after all of that is over, you're spending months promoting that movie. So for each film, that is basically a whole year of your life put into something. For Chadwick Boseman, whatever he was dedicating his life to had to be challenging and inspiring for generations to come. He took challenges and instead of making excuses out of them, he powered through them to greatness. Number 2. Root for others to win. Boseman was always rooting for others to win. He was never selfish and he never saw himself as better than anyone else. When he shot Black Panther with Michael B. Jordan, he complained in an interview about how people would select one actor that was doing well at the time and tag him or her to be the one taking over from an older legend. Boseman didn't like this because it made it look like only one of the actors could succeed. He described it as negative and frightening because it can create a divide between the actors and pitch them against each other because one wanted to succeed over the other. He was never a man of competition and he always believed that the sky is big enough for all of us to fly. In his words, and I quote, "I root for everybody because I know that if they do well, it also presents an opportunity for me." To Boseman, it was not all about trying to be the best at the expense of others. It was important to him that other people in his field were succeeding too, as it could open doors for him in different ways. For example, his success in the Black Panther role opened the door for Michael B. Jordan to play the Forgotten Prince of Wakanda. Number 1. Care. The Black Panther film was met with massive fan love throughout the world, and one of the reasons a lot of people still love this movie to this day is because of how much Chadwick Boseman cared about the fans. Everywhere he went, people would do the Wakanda Forever gesture to him, and instead of getting tired of it, he always did it back to the people because he understood what it meant to them. He cared about them and he never left anyone hanging. This helped create a strong connection between a movie character and the fans, more than anything we've seen before. While in an interview for the movie Black Panther, he told the story of 2 boys who were suffering with cancer, and he knew that they were terminal. He said that the parents of these kids had called and told him that the boys were just trying to hold on long enough to see his film. He was shocked about just how much this meant to these boys, and many others he didn't know of. So he took that motivation and put in the work, going as hard and fast as he could to make sure that it came out just as people were expecting it to. As you would guess, this was also a very emotional story to tell, considering he knew he was having his own battles with cancer at the time. You could tell that Chadwick cared about the people. Throughout the time he was fighting his own battles, he continued making these movies to keep the people happy and continued paying visits to kids who were fighting their own battles with cancer. We understand now that he could really feel their pain, and it translated into how much work he was willing to put in to make these movies and characters he played the masterpieces they turned out to be. Here at Forever Hustle, we talk about the strength, perseverance and motivation it takes to achieve your goals. And Chadwick Boseman was the living embodiment of that. He will forever remain an inspiration and hero for us and many other young people to come. In the famous words of King T'Challa,
"In my culture, death is not the end."
Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Wakanda forever!